On Spotlight this week, I chat exclusively to supermodel Sophie Anderton. Spotlight in association with Space 2. Welcome to Spotlight with me, Lisa Cannon, here in the Stella Cinema Rathmines in Dublin. Well, she was the Brit supermodel of the 1990s with Naomi, Helena Christensen and Kate Moss. She had campaigns for Gossard and graced the covers of GQ magazine. She currently resides in County Wicklow with her new husband, Kaz, and we got a sneak peek into her stunning wedding on the cover of Hello magazine last year. It's supermodel Sophie Anderton. Well, here with me now is Sophie Anderton. Congratulations, Sophie.
Thank you.
So much for you to be celebrating at the moment. I mean,
Yes.
Not only did you get married, isn't it August time?
It was August 5th last year.
Yeah, but you've just, you've really enjoyed Irish society and embraced it. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Tell me all about the wedding and what happened on the day.
What happened in the months leading up to it. I mean, as you know, like the rest of the world, obviously we were going through a pandemic and the rules and regulations were changing all the time. So originally we thought we'd be okay for a larger wedding because it was at home, it was going to be outside, we were going to have all the social distancing, etc. But the HSE were amazing, and they did come back and say yes, we could go ahead, but 2 days before I lost my nerve, cancelled. So I was like, no, right, let's turn it on its head. Let's make it really small, let's keep it really sort of, just really close family and friends. And then I didn't know at the time that I'd have to move it twice again.
Well, I mean, as much as there was things going wrong, the one thing was going right, that
Yes.
you were marrying
Yes.
Kaz.
Yeah.
And I think as a bride, lots happened to me. I got married in Florence and the car didn't start, and a bit like you, a lot of kind of things happened, but I just let it wash over me, and you have to. So there was no bridezilla in place then. You were delighted to be just enjoying the day for what it was.
Actually, everyone was terrified. They're like, she's way too calm.
Calm
She's going
before
to
the
blow
storm.
at any moment. And I'm like, there was a lot of words going through my head, which I'm not going to repeat.
Sure.
But I was like, beep, 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 beep. It's going ahead, it's going ahead. So no, it was really beautiful. And just as I walked out of my wedding dress and Helen addressed me and was calming me down, so I suddenly got a really big panic attack of nerves, which was really surprising given what my career has been.
I was just going to say.
And suddenly the sunshine came out. And it was beautiful and sunny for the rest of the afternoon. I think we had a tiny bit of drizzle around 8 p.m. But no, it was fabulous.
Let's talk about your dress, because I've had a lot of people saying, well, Sophie's going to be on the show, we need to know about your dress. Helen Cody,
Yes.
one of the most brilliant, talented Irish designers, that we have, and one of our biggest exports. Why did you decide to go with Helen, actually?
Oh, well, there's a story behind this. I've known Helen since I was 18, because I used to fly over to do all the Dunn's lingerie campaigns, and Helen used to style me. So I went in for a fitting, and I fell in love with two dresses. And then when we kind of retweaked them, and then one of them, I just knew that was the dress. And because it's very, very similar, much more simpler, but very similar to a design of my wedding dress, which I thought I would wear when I was 12, and I designed it.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
You must have, is it like you had your little wee box when you were 12 and you're like, this is what I want to wear?
I had one wedding dress design, which given the fact that I never wanted to get married, but we did it at school, and I did lots of design at school, and it was always my passion, was art and everything. So, and my art teacher asked us to design our wedding dress, and the one I designed was off the shoulders, so similar to the Helen, but then with kind of fluted sleeves coming down over the hand. But the only difference was it had a veil, which I was just like, at 44, I'm not wearing a veil. We're past that point at this point.
I love your honesty. It's like,
well,
no.
I was like, I mean, really, he knows who he's marrying. And then it had like a sort of 3-tier long train at the back, which that was a no-go as well. I wanted simplicity, and I didn't want to feel that the dress was wearing me and it just kind of morphed into being part of my day, and I just felt very, very comfortable and very at ease.
Sophie, let's talk about your modelling career. We have to. Okay, so I remember, and I'm 43 now, so I remember seeing you in kind of fashion Bibles and magazines when I was like 18, and of course it's the Gossard bra.
Yeah.
You know, I used to cut you out and everything. And
Really?
Like, yeah, I look like that. You know, because obviously things have totally changed
Yeah.
now, haven't they? What was the time like back then, 1996 time?
It's the 90s. It was a wonderful time. Fashion was really fun. It was extravagant, it was glamorous, it was excessive, but it was, I look back at the 90s and it was true glamour and high fashion. And I started modeling when I was 14 and a half. By the time I was 15 and a half, I was living in Tokyo, Milan, and then doing Milan and Paris. My first big show in Paris, I did Chanel, and I'd never walked a big Paris show. It was, each city was a slightly different walk and everything, and I was really nervous. And Christy Turlington taught me how to catwalk properly. Because
nice.
Yeah, so that was my first major show, and then I wasn't typically a showgirl, but at 16, and I found it tough. It was brutal in those days. I mean, if you had an apple, the agents would tell you not to eat a thing the next day.
What?
So when I came back from Paris, yeah, I came back from, but it was a different era. Now,
now it's okay.
Well, there's much more education, and people are much more knowledgeable, but also it's been recognised that that's abusive. And so young girls these days are much more looked after, and at that age they would have a chaperone.
So that supermodel kind of aura, you know, was present then, you know, rather than it just being something that is reachable.
And it was
untouchable.
before basically the Google, and then, you know, and you had all the sort of online side of the newspapers, this, that and the other. And it did kind of explode, sort of, I think it was about 2004. And the women who were the supermodels kind of lost the anonymity a little bit, that mystique, which I think was just so wonderful in the 90s. And they, you know, it was like them were unicorns in a way.
Oh, that's a great way to describe them. Yeah.
Especially Cindy, Christie. I mean, to me, those are the true supermodels. Yes, there was, you know, I'm kind of always seen myself I've always been slightly on the lower level to them. To me, I mean, I always idolise them, and if I think of supermodels, I still think of the 80s supermodels, which is Helena, Christie, Naomi, you know. So,
was there more of a camaraderie between you all? Was it friendlier? I mean,
yeah.
You know, we look at Instagram now, and obviously people talk about their mental health, and it can be quite damaging, I think, you know, Instagram. But back in those days, you seemed to have you looked after each other.
Yes, we had each other's backs, and don't get me wrong, there were other challenges in those days. I mean, you know, as a young model, wherever there's beautiful young women, follows a slightly darker side, and the predatory side and stuff. I was very lucky. Majority of that I avoided because I was a feisty little thing. But yeah, and I was very lucky. I mean, like Naomi and I had the same agent, so she watched my back. You know, I was like the annoying little yappy puppy. But yeah, I do feel, and you know, I do think it's a tough industry. Would I encourage one of my stepdaughters to go into it? I mean, one of my stepdaughters is an actress and she's doing very well. But would I encourage them to look at it as a career which has longevity? No, I wouldn't. Because of social media and everything, people get bored so quickly, and I think that's the really tough part. These young girls are promised the world. They go into the industry. They've got 6 seasons, 3 years max, before the next hot young thing is going to come along and take their place. And I think that's really tough. And then you have the American bunch of supermodels as well, which, by the way, Bella Hadid, I think, is absolutely stunning. The jury's out on a few others.
And part 2 of my interview with Sophie is coming up after we see what's in store in the eagerly awaited Downton Abbey, The New Era, which is released today.
Here we go, and 3, 2, 1, action.
Welcome to Downton Abbey. My big questions are, which characters are coming back and who are the new characters arriving in Downton for the first time?
Roll the camera and action.
Where do we pick up with the threads of the first movie?
We ended the last one with Tom Branson dancing with his beloved, and it's only fitting that this new adventure should open with their wedding.
My character for so long has been a facilitator for other people's happiness, and suddenly he was getting happy himself.
Going to France to explore this inheritance that Violet has received opens a whole can of worms.
I have a little bit of a secret as well, which I won't say.
Okay.
It's exciting every time you open a script, like, where's your character going to be? Because honestly, you never know.
Laura Carmichael,
Hi.
Lady Edith,
Yes.
Queen of Middle Children.
Yes, exactly.
What can we expect from Edith?
Along with being a bit of a detective in France, she's also got her journalist hat on and is writing stories as they go around. I've been thinking about an article on the people who visit the south of France in the summer now.
I'm glad to hear you're doing something with your brain again.
Well, let's hope it's still there.
Not all of us got to go to France, so we weren't upset about that at all.
Of course not.
Mary has come into her own because she is really, running the house, and she's a businesswoman.
Women like us fall into two categories, dragons and fools, that you must make sure they think of you as a dragon.
What's interesting is that Mary and Violet sort of have this parallel story. Mary's having her own little flirtation with Hugh Dancy's character, so...
It's what she deserves.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're joined by the fantastic Hugh Dancy.
Dominic West and Laura Haddock join us, and they're part of the movie within the movie. They're so fantastic.
It's so much fun to see these people invade the castle because they're the modern era.
Actresses plastered in makeup and actors just plastered.
Meanwhile, some of the cast get to go to France and play with Natalie Bay and Jonathan Zakai. So we were the Brits abroad, well, and the American abroad.
We always love having new people, and it is like welcoming them into the family.
How did you break into films? Because you're so handsome.
I thought they were excited by my acting talent.
It has been an absolute delight to get this behind-the-scenes sneak peek of Downton Abbey 2.
Downton Abbey, A New Era. In cinemas April 29.
Here's part 2 of my exclusive sit-down interview in Space 2 with supermodel Sophie Anderton. I mean, obviously, we've seen you on television, I'm a Celebrity, Big Brother, you've done loads of great reality TV. And what I was kind of intrigued by and why I wanted to invite you on the show is that you have this kind of beautiful, vulnerable side to you, but you also have that real curt honesty where, like, I'm just going to say it as it is. Do you like that juxtaposition of kind of being vulnerable, which, allows people in to hear what you need to say, but also being honest?
Okay, we must remember a lot of these shows, I mean, they're so heavily edited and, the producers, they chop and change it. So they do tweak what the actual reality of what happened. But no, if I feel that something's really wrong, I am quite vocal about it. But at the same time, I've always been, I've got a big heart and I wear it on my sleeves. I don't understand how anyone can go on those shows and hide their emotions because it's such a intense experience. For me, I'm a Celebrity I absolutely loved.
Did you? Did you enjoy that?
Loved it.
Even the critters and everything.
Oh, that didn't bother me. I love challenges. I'm a bit of a tomboy. I love Cirque du Celebrity as well, flipping around 30 feet up in the tent on trapeze, because I always wanted to learn trapeze and cloud swing. And I don't...
learning stuff about you all the time throughout this interview.
But Big Brother...
Yeah, what was Big Brother like? Yay or nay?
For me, no. That for me was the end of I realised that I should only have ever been a model, and the whole fame thing for me is not for me. Some people may love it. It's a double-edged sword.
Ooh.
And I find it quite, I think it's, if used in the wrong hands, it can be really quite abusive. So for me, it's not something I feel comfortable with, because I didn't realise actually until the last sort of decade and a half, I'm actually quite shy.
It's just funny because you brought it up about, fame, and always hear you know, in Space 2 and on the show, we ask everybody, you know, because anyone that comes on the show obviously has notoriety and is famous. What's fame like? I mean, the fact that you said you didn't even want it now, that's interesting. Because a model is about projecting yourself and, you know, everything in between.
As a 15-year-old model, I wanted to be on the cover of Vogue. I wanted to be doing Valentino, Chanel. No one could have predicted, no one actually kind of explained to me what would happen when the billboards went up. And I don't think even my agents at the time at Elite realised how big it was going to be.
How big did it go?
Stratospheric. Especially, I believe they were all torn down in Ireland because the underwear was see-through.
Right.
Yes, it was unbelievable. So I went from just being a successful model I always worked from day one.
You got booked for that job and then boom.
Yeah, and it was an amazing opportunity. I remember coming back from Thailand, and I had really bad jet lag, and they're like, "You've got to go down and see Gossard." I'm like, "Gossard? Who's Gossard?" I had no idea.
It was all the taglines and everything.
You have to remember, I was a young girl from Bristol. I mean, my pronunciation of some of the big designers. I think I actually did call Chanel Channel when I was about 15. I'm very sure.
No.
Yes,
yes. How'd that go down?
With a Bristolian accent, obviously.
But you're young.
Exactly. I was a kid. I mean, and I came from, you know.
Channel.
Exactly. Chanel was not something that was discussed in my home life.
I agree.
And so I came back, and the next thing I know, I'm being flown first class to Los Angeles to shoot with her Brits up in the Beverly Hills with a crew of like 200, lying in the grass in see-through underwear. I'd never done a lingerie job before at that point, and it was really quite nerve-wracking.
I bet it was.
But her Brits was incredible, and he was such a kind soul, bless him. And he really kind of handheld me through it. And yeah, next thing I know, so I come back, and then within a month, I get the call the day before going, "Oh yeah, you know, the campaign's coming out tomorrow." Didn't think anything of it.
Because you're booked all the time, yeah.
Well, I didn't really register billboards. I just knew the campaign was coming out. And suddenly it's like 20, you know, all the major, I mean, it was all over the UK, Ireland, Europe. And I was driving to do my first GQ cover, and my flatmate and my best friend Rachel, she rang me and she said, "I think you might want to go to the newsagents." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She said, "Just pull over at the next newsagents." I walked in, and every front national newspaper.
But you can take or leave fame anyway. It's like,
I
at the moment you've a quieter life.
I don't actually know why anybody would want to be famous. I don't get that. I didn't really have a choice in the matter. I mean, I suppose I could have given up modelling and then gone back to school and gone on to university. But when you're earning that type of money, you wouldn't think like that at the age of 18, 19. But to actually want to go out there and to put yourself out there. And I am kind of a firm believer that celebrity these days means no discerning talent.
Fair enough.
I'm just kind of like, you know, it's kind of it's not how it was in the 90s, and it's a shame. It is a shame. But then people are making careers out of it, and good on them. You know.
Good on them.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose that negates my next question, because I was looking at you living here in Ireland, and obviously I know we've a lot still more to talk about what you're doing, but would TV presenting be of interest to you? You know, something along those lines. But I think maybe not, because you've said I don't want the fame. Would you be interested? Because you've done so much television.
That's different, because you're the one doing the interviewing.
So yeah, exactly.
And also, you know, one thing I love about Ireland is I do love the media here and the industry here. It's a smaller, obviously a smaller population than it is in the UK, but they're much more respectful towards people and towards their privacy. And I do think that's wonderful. I mean, it's, you know, I go into Centro and Roundwood, and they don't even blink an eyelash. You know, I mean,
But would you consider if you know, an opportunity arose on one of the national networks or other, would you consider TV presenting or presenting something that you'd like to
If it was to do with fashion, yes. If it was to do with subject matter that I am passionate about, definitely. If it was to do with interviewing people and asking them difficult questions and putting them in a position I've been put in many times, I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. Sure. I'm way too much of a softie. I don't have that. I haven't got that hardened sort of sort of
Well,
journalistic.
that's okay. Maybe it's going to be a fashion program, or it might be
Yeah.
something along those lines. Let's talk about fitness, because I
Okay.
have to ask you about your fitness. My goodness, I see you on Instagram and I think, oh my goodness, aren't you the inspiration? I need to get to the gym. I know you work out, and you work out very hard, and you work hard on your physique. So what are the tips and tricks? What keeps you motivated, Sophie?
For me, it's a personal motivation. Coming up to 15 years ago, I completely dramatically changed my life. I mean, being a young model, eating disorders is part of the course. I wouldn't say that I ever had a big eating disorder, but I had a weird relationship with food. I've always loved food, but I was told I shouldn't eat it as a kid. So it was something that I very much wanted to address coming into my 30s. And along with that came fitness. So for me to enjoy food and to learn about nutrition, I also needed to learn about the fitness side of things. So it is very much interlinked. It is a daily discipline for me. You
work out every day?
I have some days off, and if I'm working, I'm not working out. But I mix it up, so I'm not saying that I'm going hammer to tong for 3 hours every day.
Wow, okay, thank God.
No, so some days, some days I'll do like a reformer bed Pilates. I'll do some yoga. I may go for a speed walk out in the mountains. I don't want to be really muscly. I want to be fit. I want to be strong, and I want to be lean, but I don't want to be skinny. And I'm very conscious, and I can lose weight very, very easily. So I have to really make sure that I'm upping my calorie intake on some days, and then other days I pare it back and I may do more of a cleanse. I'm a big believer an avocado a day keeps the Botox doctor away. So
you heard it first
I
here.
tell all my girlfriends, and I'm like, I'd rather have an extra inch on my hips than have less wrinkles.
Wow, an avocado, okay.
Yes.
I'm in. Now, we ask everybody on the show, if they were hosting a dinner party, who would they have at their dinner party? We've usually 6 people. So mine is, for example, John Lennon,
Yeah.
you know, Billy Connolly, I love Elizabeth Taylor. Yeah, there's a few. I'd love my mum there. My mum sadly passed away. Who are your 6?
Okay, funny enough, Elizabeth Taylor, but I would have Elizabeth Taylor, Joan Collins. Oh my God, can you imagine a dinner party with Joan Collins? She is such a rock star. I would have Sean Connery, because he'd be my biggest crush for as long as I can remember. Kate Adie, the war correspondent. Because as a woman, I was brought up with, she was one of the most prominent women for me when I was a child. And I actually wanted to be a war correspondent up until I discovered fashion. I know. It's a little bit of a contradiction.
This insane.
I'd have to invite my mum, because she'd kill me, because she's obsessed with Joan Collins and she fancies the pants off Sean Connery too, so it runs in the family.
That's a love triangle right there.
And then if I was to have anyone else, I'd probably say Paul Newman.
They are great choices, Sophie.
Yeah.
I'm very
kind
impressed.
of old school. There's so many stories and so much history there, and it would be the one time you could sit at a dinner party and just listen, and the conversation bouncing off would be quite remarkable. So
this is my final question to you, because you know you have a new line coming out, which I think everybody will be excited to hear about, fashion.
Yes.
So tell me finally about what's happening in your world with that.
Well, funny enough, after Big Brother, I kind of disappeared behind the scenes, and I was learning about the whole manufacturing design and technical design, working with friends of mine who have brands back in London. But wasn't quite ready to do my own brand, and my business partner is actually one of my closest girlfriends, incredibly astute, very, very well respected in the industry on the more business side, manufacturing, etc. So we're basically the yin and yang of each other. It's perfect because, and we work really well, we bounce off brilliantly. So we're, at the moment, I paused modelling from the end of last year until April, just to concentrate on the design process, etc.
So what can we expect?
Is
it for women?
It's for women 35 plus demographic.
Okay.
It's affordable luxury, so it's a reasonable price point. So kind of think sort of Rixo price points is just the only way I can describe it.
And style-wise?
Style-wise, it's going to be a really eclectic mix. I'm very much drawing on my archive of vintage pieces and pieces through the 90s, which I still have from Gianni Versace, etc., but also incorporating and modernising the classics. So it's going to be very much non-seasonal, non-trend, because I do believe women will still invest in a beautiful piece, but they also want to get the wearability factor out of it.
Of course we do.
And especially in this day and age, I do think trends are being thrown out of the window, because not many people can afford to be wearing them.
Well, I can't wait. Sounds
thank
absolutely
you.
brilliant.
I'm really excited.
Watch this space, because Sophie, with all your fashion endeavours and everything going on, you know, really, you're a true talent, and I wish you
Thank you.
all the best. Thank you so much for joining us here
thank
on
you
Spotlight
so much
today.
For having me,
did you
honestly.
enjoy the chat?
I did actually. I
Good.
did. First interview in oh my god, 8 years.
What?
Yes.
That's an
bar
exclusive.
Hello magazine, but yeah. So I don't tend to do many of these, but I really enjoyed it. Thank
Good,
you so
Sophie.
much.
Well, that's it for this week on Spotlight. But coming up on next week's show, I took exclusively to Jennifer Lopez and Barack Obama's life coach, direct from his home in Los Angeles. It's Mike Bayer. Now, Mike is a weekly contributor to the Dr. Phil show in the United States and will be giving us the secrets of all the stars. I'll be back again here next week, shining a light on all the entertainment that matters. Spotlight in association with Space 2.